Hi there, this is Lisa Wilcox listening to Rocktober on Rock Video Rental.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Rock Video Rental. I am Brandon, and with me, as always, is Caleb, and we are chugging along through a Nightmare on Elm Street series, and we're reached the point to a movie that we have already talked about before, and that is Freddy versus Jason, which is from 2003 and is directed by Ronnie Yu. The plot is Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees return to terrorize the teenagers of Elm Street, only this time they're out to get each other too. The
Love,
cast we got what?
I was gonna
What?
say, love it. Like, so exciting and like it really draws you in.
Right. The greatest plot ever. The cast we got Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger and himself. We got Ken Kersinger as Jason Voorhees, Monica Keena as Laurie Campbell, Jason Ritter as Will Collins, Kelly Rowland as Kia Watterson, Catherine Isabel as Gib. I like how she's just Gib. Christopher Marquette as Charlie Linderman, and Kyle Labine. I have Kyle Labine as Jason Mewes, as um Jay from Jay and Silent Bob, as Freeberg, because that character is a complete ripoff of Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. Uh,
Absolutely.
so much to the point that when they did the documentary um Never Sleep Again, which is about the entire Elm Street series, they had Jason Mewes pop up and he's like, man, it was like a dream come true, but getting to play Freeberg. And he's like, wait a minute, I wasn't in that movie.
Ha,
and, then, and then they moved on.
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was hilarious. It catches me off guard every time I've seen that too. That they actually got Jason Mewes to show up for like literally maybe 20 seconds. But yeah, this was out of all these that we've talked about, the first one that I saw in the theater. Um, I remember seeing it. It was it's funny. I've talked about this before. Some of the strange movies that I've seen in theater with my mom. This
Hmm.
was one of them. Um, because at the time I was, man, 12. That sounds about right.
Wait, when this came out?
I
This came,
was 17.
okay.
Sorry, I don't math.
No, that's okay. I was like, wait, because I was thinking of some of the previous movies and I was like, oh, that sounds right. And I was like, wait a minute, this was 2003.
Yeah,
That's
I was
not
like,
right.
yeah, I was like trying to do the math in my head. I'm like, wait a minute, this is 2003.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was probably about 16, I think, when it came out,
Hmm.
right around there. Um, yeah, so not old enough to go by myself, but yeah. I remember it being really fun and a movie to see in a theater, even if you are 16 and your mom had to take you. But
Was it one of those where because I have not seen I saw one horror movie in the theater and that was like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake that came around this time.
yeah,
So when you saw this, was it one of those where like everybody in the theaters like being loud and reacting to it or
no, I mean, this movie was more of like this was a fan service movie, I would say,
yeah.
where it was, this only existed because so many people would be like, oh, who would win in a fight,
Hmm.
Freddy versus Jason. It's kind of like Alien versus Predator,
Sure.
where it's just like schoolyard discussions. Then they're like, let's just make a movie about it, see how much money we can make. And it made quite a bit of money. So yeah, it was more of just like a fun, it has its funny moments, it has its uh impressive moments, I guess, where you're gonna laugh or you're gonna be like, oh man, kind of thing. It was more of like a fun atmosphere, if I remember right.
Hmm.
I mean, granted, that was, gosh, this is 20 years ago.
Oh my
That
gosh,
makes me
yeah.
feel incredibly old. Um, but yeah, I just remember it being like a fun atmosphere. So I'm assuming this is probably the second time you've seen this movie.
Yeah. I have not watched it a second time since we watched it for the Friday 13th. So
Yeah, I got it on DVD somewhere. I watched it streaming this time. I don't. There's like a whole bunch of extra features and stuff. They talked about like the original plans for like the ending and all that, but we'll get all of that when we start talking about trivia and facts. But yeah, I guess we could just kind of dive right into it here. Things that were good, as I thought, making a movie like this is kind of difficult because you have to try to find a way to make it believable for both series and to find a way to like have these two meet up together.
hmm.
And I thought that the way that they handled it was pretty decent. Bringing both Freddy and Jason together in an interesting way.
Yeah, the concepts work, but I'm not very familiar with this, and I don't know. I didn't spend time to look it up, but the geography of the two places of Camp Crystal Lake and crap, what's the name of the town? Uh oh,
Springwood,
Springwood. There we go.
yeah,
Like how close they are that Jason could easily walk.
yeah. Well,
So,
didn't really even say where Springwood was until like really far into the series of Nightmare on Elm Street, and then they were just kind of like, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's in Ohio." Like, okay, and then Crystal Lake. I'm not sure they entirely say where that is at either, but it's
it,
kind of just widely known that as New Jersey.
yeah, I was gonna
So
say it
that's
can't be
that's
too
quite a
far from New
walk.
York because he took a boat trip to New York, so he can't be too far away.
uh, a boat trip to New York that was actually Vancouver, so no telling where it's at. Maybe it's like Springfield, where
Yeah,
the Simpsons are from.
yeah, just a mystery. No, so I
Yeah,
mean, I guess that's not the worst to say from New Jersey to Ohio, but still, that's that's a long way to walk.
yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, as far as the concept goes, where like why would these two be crossing paths? Um, I do feel like it worked a lot better than a lot of other possibilities.
Yeah,
Also, when they essentially introduced, well, wait, was that the, well, yeah, it was after the little intro part where they did the Friday the 13th dream for Jason.
yeah,
Uh,
like the little kind of yeah,
Freddy's little dream for him. That was pretty cool. That was well done. That was pretty smooth. So,
yeah. There's a few things that are handled pretty well when they show kind of like a flashback for Jason as a kid when he drowns,
hmm.
and that was kind of interesting. Which I mean, we're gonna be seeing more of when uh Crystal Lake comes out, the
Oh
Peacock
yeah,
show.
yeah,
Yeah,
coming soon.
so that'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure when that's gonna drop, but yeah. Um, other things that I thought were handled pretty well. I I don't know. Yeah, I mentioned that flashback scene. I think that probably that and the bringing them together were probably the two best things. Things that were great though. Robert Englund again as Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the last time he plays as Freddy. Aside from little side gigs, like he was in an episode of The Goldbergs. But yeah, he definitely brought it. I mean, he is super animated, goofy Freddy, but I mean, it's Robert Englund just laying into the character that he's pretty much created,
Yeah.
and having a good time for it. And this is the kind of movie that lends itself to that anyway, because like I said, it's a fan service movie.
Oh yeah. And I kind of, well, since we've seen all the other ones, this was not as bizarre of Freddy Krueger as, oh crap, which one is it now? I'm probably gonna get some of these messed up. Final Nightmare. He was not this Freddy was not as bizarre and goofy as the one in Final Nightmare, or the one in Dream Child, I believe it was.
Okay.
Dream Child, or wait, maybe I'm just thinking of all the scenes from Final Nightmare, because I felt Final Nightmare was really weird and goofy,
Yeah, that was a little more um
comical.
slapstick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this one, yes, while he was doing some kind of like one-liners and things like that, and how he had, I'll call it the specific part where he was fighting Jason and he was doing it like pinball,
Hmm.
that it was creative but not overly stupid goofy that you got in the Final Nightmare. The Final Nightmare basically made me feel like Freddy was a joke. Where in this one,
Right.
even though Freddy's making jokes and having fun, he's still menacing and scary. Final Nightmare, he was more goofy than anything, in my opinion. And my opinion is all that matters. So
Yeah. Yeah, the his portrayal as Freddy in New Nightmare was taken more seriously and treated more as like a demonic presence than actual Freddy.
mm-hmm.
And I guess similar to the style that he played him in the first movie. Um, and this is more of a return to the fun, goofy Freddy, but like you said, not as over the top as previous movies.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you put it on a scale and everything, it'd be leaning more towards the side of goofy, but it wasn't. This doesn't feel scary, goofy, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I agree. Another thing I thought was great was the fact that Gibbs' jerk boyfriend gets the craziest death.
Yeah,
That was nice. Complete and utter jerk, and Jason just completely destroys him. But I'll get to more of that when I talk about the deaths.
rock.
Um, I don't know, just I thought the look of Freddy was like really good in this. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about before how sometimes he looks a little too plastic, other times he looks just bizarre and
Yeah,
shiny. Um, and I thought they did a good job in this one. He does have a couple different looks, which I've noticed this time that I've never noticed before.
a couple different looks in this movie.
Yeah, he looks different a couple times. Like he got the more normal looking Freddy, which is most of it, but there's some scenes where he looks like super demonic.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Especially there's a scene too where there's like a harsh red light shining on him and he's got like demon eyes and his ears are like pointed and he has like pointed teeth,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not sure what that is all about.
That I can't remember the scene specifically, but I felt like he was doing that purposefully for being more imposing, because
Yeah,
I think it was scenes in people's dreams, not Jason's dream, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah,
yeah, you are correct that he had a couple different looks.
yeah, and I never really noticed that until this time watching it. And I've seen this movie quite a few times. I guess some more stuff that maybe didn't work as well, and then we'll get into like kills and scenes. Uh, some of the CGI is kind of crappy now. It hasn't
Uh,
aged very well.
yeah, it wasn't great, but there has definitely been worse.
Yeah, I mean it's not like Spawn levels or
Ha.
Mortal Kombat levels of poopy CGI, but just doesn't age as well as practical effects. Like, give me a terrible looking practical effect over a terrible looking CGI effect any day.
Hmm.
Another thing I have is I'd like Monica Kina. Like, she seems like a cool person, and she had like a real connection with the series. Um, Especially watching Never Sleep Again lately, and she talked about as a kid she saw part of A Nightmare on Elm Street with like a neighbor or something like that, and it gave her nightmares for a long time, to the point that she had to have like a picture of Robert Englund and a picture of Freddy like by her bed
So,
so she could like physically tell herself like it's not real, like, he's just an actor playing a character kind of thing.
oh man,
So like she had a connection to this series, but like she seems like a really cool person, but she is just not a great actor.
no, yeah,
And I think she's like really attractive and everything, but and to me, she just doesn't really fit the role of a final girl. I think I talked about this when we covered this the first time. Like, I feel like she's like too sexualized or something. Like
mm,
the looks of her in this, I mean, she's got, I don't know, she's built like more of the, probably who would be more like the slutty girl, I guess. I mean, the character she plays isn't. She's more of like a strong-willed person, but just like if you see her, you'd be thinking like, oh, this is gonna be like the good time girl, the party girl, you know?
yeah. No, I can understand what you're saying with that. I do believe that we had this conversation before, at least from the aspect of her not being, um, because I mean she's in a Jason movie, and so we talked about Final Girls in the Friday 13th series, and she was definitely not, or she was definitely on the lower end
Yeah.
of Final Girls. I do remember that kind of being in the conversation. So
Another person I thought like was kind of rough. So there's that blonde dude who's like friends with Will, and he comes from like the asylum.
yeah, Mark.
Yeah, Mark, that's his name. I couldn't think. I always see him and I think, oh, he looks like Brian from the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, hi, Mark.
He is not. He is not a good actor. Yeah. Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah, yeah, he was not great supporting member.
And I don't know if it's just like his acting job per se or like some of the dialogue he was given,
Hmm.
because there's a part where they're saying one, two, Freddy's coming for you, and he's like, you know why they sing that? Because that's when he's coming for you in your dreams.
Yeah,
That
I
one's
don't.
maybe grown this time, and I'm like, who the hell wrote that one?
I think I think he didn't have the strongest performance, but yeah, I would also argue that I don't think they exactly set him up for the greatest success with his dialogue.
Yeah, it's a mixture of that and just like, as I've seen kind of the way that guy is, just like in an interview, and pretty much he's playing himself. So maybe he just kind of has like a flat personality. He's not the kind of actor that can, I don't know how to explain it. Like,
Dynamic range
yeah,
outside the
dynamic range.
box.
Yeah, he's just kind of who he is. Maybe
Yeah.
that has something to do with it too, because he does seem kind of like a little more boring, I guess, because he's really kind of dull in this movie.
Mm.
Other things that maybe weren't so good. I wasn't a huge fan of Kelly Rowland either, but I guess she did a fine enough job. I mean, she wasn't awkward, but yeah,
Well, I think she kind of did the role that she was supposed to because you weren't necessarily supposed to like her from the way they set up her character. Not that you were supposed to root for her to die, but just kind of be like, okay, you're annoying.
yeah,
So,
for sure. Yeah, she's one of those characters like you can't really wait for her to die because she's so annoying. And like, why is she such a bitch the whole time to the guy who looks like John Cusack? You know what I'm talking about?
yeah.
Linderman or whatever his name is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the whole time, like he just seems like a nice guy. And yeah, maybe he does have the hots for Lori, but like really, did we have to be like so mean to him?
Yeah. It's high school, man. Kids, hormones, important things like school dances, you know,
Yeah.
all that big
And I
stuff.
mean, Kelly Rowland's, I mean, she'll be forever known as not Beyonce from Destiny's Child. Her and was it Michelle Williams, I think is the other one's name. Destiny's Child.
Hmm.
They're both not Beyonce. Um yeah, I just had in my notes. It's like, why is not Beyonce such a bitch to John Cusack?
That's funny. That's a
Yeah, because
great
if this was made
comparison.
in the 80s, I think John Cusack probably would have played that character because that dude looks so much like him.
Oh yeah.
Uh, there's a couple awkward moments too where um Freddy's like trying to kill people, but he doesn't have the power to yet. And this
Hmm.
one guy's like freaking out, and then Freddy goes to like stab him, and he's just like, huh? He's like, I'm all right. That
Yeah.
was really weird.
Yeah, it's like I feel like that was early enough too, where the guy's just like nobody really knows that you're supposed to be dying yet, and so it's just like, okay, why why would you even know and acknowledge that at this point? Like Freddy understands, but the person in the dream is would just be like, "Oh, I'm dreaming and I'm fine." It's
Yeah,
not like, "Oh, this is Freddy Krueger and if he kills me in my dream, I'm going to die." No, you're not supposed to know that yet.
right.
Yeah, that was one thing too that I had. And honestly, of course, after you get past the first one, there is a certain, in most cases, there's a certain level of information they expect you to know on, the characters and the backstory and everything. And so,
Yeah, it's definitely a movie that relies heavily on you seeing all the movies from the other two, like
y-
from both series. Uh,
yeah, that you at least have some background knowledge and have seen maybe one of the movies from each series. So it's just like, okay, I understand who Jason is and I understand who Freddy is.
yeah. I'm not sure if this was like the best Jason performance. I mean, Jason's more of a you can get away with like just having a random stunt guy as Jason.
Hmm.
I feel like I mean, we when we did the first Nightmare on Elm Street, we talked about how they tried to just get a stunt man to play Freddy, and it just wasn't working. Where Freddy's not hidden behind a mask; he has to speak, he has to act, and everything. So it's harder to just kind of fill that role.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this was like the best portrayal of Jason.
No, it wasn't the best. I can't remember which one was because we talked about it when we did the series, but it was good. I mean, it was successful. It was certainly not bad. But also, I mean, not to downplay at all what he did, um, playing Jason, but it's also not exactly asking for an Oscar winning performance.
Right.
So,
Uh, so I guess I'll get into some kills here because there's quite a few. Um, according to the internet where I got this from, there are 22 kills in this. We get Heather is impaled against a tree by Jason. Trey, which was Gibbs' boyfriend, gets stabbed like a bunch, and then he's folded up in half into a bed by Jason. Blake Stagg gets decapitated by Jason. Blake gets killed off screen by Jason. Gib gets impaled against the ground with a pipe by Jason. I like this character is just called Glow Stick Guy. Is impaled against Gib with a pipe by Jason when he's like trying to assault her.
Hmm.
Another dude gets his head twisted around by Jason. That's kind of a funny effect. This guy named Shaq, he gets impaled by a flaming machete. And then there's 6 guys at a rave who all get slashed by Jason.
Yep.
Oh, hi, Mark. Gets his face slashed and then he's lit on fire by Freddy. So first person killed by Freddy in this.
Oh, okay.
Security guard, he gets crushed to death by a door by Jason. Deputy Stubbs gets electrocuted by Jason. Freeberg gets cut in half with a machete by Jason. There's a flashback where Lori's mom gets stabbed to death by Freddy. Linderman gets impaled against a shelf bracket and he bleeds out. Kia gets slashed with a machete and flies against a tree. And then technically Freddy gets decapitated, but I mean he winks at the end.
Yeah, so he's still alive,
Yeah.
which doesn't really make sense, but okay.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It was one of those like you couldn't have either one of them win, you couldn't have either one of them lose, and I thought that was a good compromise.
Jason
So
deserved
other
to win.
scenes, when Jason is resurrected, that's a pretty cool scene.
Hmm.
And I like the whole little dream thing where Freddy pretends to be Mrs. Voorhees, but I don't like how they didn't use Betsy Palmer, where they just use some old lady.
Yeah, I mean, how was she even available?
Yeah, she was. She just turned it down.
Oh,
She thought the role was too small. Um, so seeing like a quick background on Freddy was kind of interesting.
yeah, I did. I thought it was pretty good too. I just kind of didn't like how they didn't make Freddy more ominous, more dark, more secretive. Like I don't know. I feel like they just didn't need to show his face as much. No, it kind of humanized him more.
Yeah.
Which isn't a huge problem, but it just I don't know. It felt different than the rest of the movies, to a certain degree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, I don't think it hurt the character as bad as humanizing Michael Myers in the
Yeah,
Halloween series.
no, no, no.
Like I've always said that the scariest part about Michael Myers is that you just don't know anything about him
Hmm.
and he has no reasons for anything.
Yeah.
And when you start giving him a motive, it kind of takes away from the mystique.
Hmm.
But um one of my favorite lines that always makes me laugh is during that flashback of when Jason drowned and Lori's like trying to save Jason and she runs up to the counselors and she's like, I need help. And they're like, go away. And she's like, you mean you're not coming? And then like this one counselor's like having sex with his girlfriend and he turns around and it's Freddy. And he's like, it's not my fault. Can't you see this bitch is dead on her feet? I don't know why that made me laugh so hard this time. But he's got like this corpse that's like flopping around.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
speaking of which, is this the movie that um Freddy says bitch the most?
it might be.
Because he says it a lot.
Yeah.
He said it then in that joke. He said it to several characters, and he also said it to a guy a couple times, I think.
Yeah. Uh, but can we just admit that the best use of Freddy saying bitch is welcome to primetime bitch?
Yes. Yeah,
The
I'm
first time
on
he
board
said
for
it.
that.
Yeah. I think that one's my favorite still.
That was the first time he said it.
I believe so.
That's probably why he used it so much then, because the first time was so impactful, and they're like, "Oh, let's run with it."
Yeah. Okay, Robert, like we really love that you called that girl a bitch. Can you call everyone a bitch now?
Okay.
He's like, ah, yes.
You female dog. No, 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 Robert, no.
Oh gosh. I also had my notes too of a memorable scene, but I don't remember what it was about. I wish I would have put some more notes on this. Um, I just have what was the name? Freddy. What
Oh,
what scene was that? Can you
that
shed some
was
light on that? Because I'm blanking right
yes,
now.
yes, I can. So that was she was in the police station and she was trying to remember who she overheard the cop say name, and she had her head on the table and she was looking down, and then she was basically saying, what was the name? And then she opened her eyes and said Freddy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm not sure why you would have that as a memorable scene exactly, but
Man, maybe that was just something that I thought was bad.
uh,
Could have been. I don't remember now. It's been a little while since I watched it. I think we took like a week or something like that in between when we watched this and when we recorded. So
mm,
yeah, that's on me for not taking better notes.
dun, dun, dun.
Uh, oh, one thing I did forget to talk about though was I don't know how I feel about the heavy metal soundtrack. I feel like it fits the era, but maybe not the franchise so well. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 had Dream Warriors as the theme, but I don't know, this is like industrial early 2000s hard rock and metal, like new metal.
Yeah, no, I mean, when the two were fighting, Freddy and Jason, I felt like it kind of fit, but anything outside of that was kind of like a little over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the whole extended fighting scenes at the end really paid off pretty well for the
Mm-hmm.
build up. It was pretty good. There was a lot of good stunts and just lots of gore and just like if someone walked in never seen any of these movies, walked in and saw this and be like, what the heck is going on? There's like this burned up dude in a sweater fighting this dude in a hockey mask. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, any other scenes that stick out to you as memorable?
Well, I think one thing that I don't know, maybe kind of gets overlooked, but just sticks out to me is when they pull Freddy into the real world and then he's in the cabin with Jason and he has that oh crap moment.
Yeah,
And I just think that that was captured really well. And of course, actually, I think right when that happens is when the metal music like drops
yeah,
and they start like thrashing out. But yeah, Robert Englund just had a really good job of just like kind of capturing that whole like, oh crap, you know, I could die from this.
right. Shit just got real. Yeah, that scene's great. Um, one of the eye rolling ones is when they're all sitting around like trying to figure out what to do,
Oh
and like
yeah.
out of nowhere, Laurie's just like, Freddy died by fire and Jason died by water. How can we use that? Like the way it's delivered, the fact that she just came up with that off the top of her head and like out of nowhere was a reach.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
just
that
ridiculous.
that whole scene was crazy. Well, because it's when the cop shows up and he's just like, "Hey, I want to help you kids out." They
Yeah,
have that weird revelation. She has the weird dream. They all of a sudden are super smart and figure out exactly what they need to do.
yeah,
That is definitely one thing with this one that I feel is maybe worse than most of the other ones, where it's just like they figured it out what to do too easily. Like,
Yeah, they came up with a complex plan in like no time.
yeah. Where in real life, like everybody would be dead before anybody really had a plan like that come up.
Oh yeah, for sure. So trivia and facts.
Trivia and facts.
I didn't put down too much because I'm sure I covered a lot of it when we did it the last time. So according to Robert Englund, his Freddy makeup was so thick that he couldn't tell how hot it was from the fires during filming. When he got in to have the makeup removed, it had bonded to itself to his face.
Oh man.
Yeah, that'd be awful.
Oh.
So standing at 6'5", Ken Kersinger is the tallest actor to date to play Jason. Also, this wasn't the first time Ken Kersinger appeared in a Friday the 13th movie. He was also in Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. There's a scene where Jason walks into a diner and grabs like a big dude and he throws him into a mirror. And that was Ken Kersinger.
Nice.
So that's kind of funny. This is the first Freddy movie not filmed in the United States. And filmmakers had to search for a new house that would resemble the famous Freddy Krueger Elm Street house, which was in the first 7 of the Nightmare films. Yeah, this is a Canadian filmed movie.
Mm.
So 17 scripts were submitted, which eventually turned into one script. The producers decided to take some time and go ahead with the script, but changed their minds and they could not agree on the ideas proposed. Eventually, in 2001, Damian Shannon and Mark Swift came in and created their own, which producers felt was much closer to Freddy and Jason backstories. Most of the earlier scripts dealt with cults that were attempting to resurrect Freddy and Jason to come back and fight, which I'm happy they didn't go with that. And like I said, I felt like what they came up with was probably about the best they could have done.
Rock.
While several journalists and television hosts tried to embarrass Kelly Rowland over her role in the film, she has always responded by saying that the film was a hit and she enjoyed making it and therefore has nothing to be ashamed about. According to the director Ronnie Yu, the special effects team used 300 gallons of fake blood for the movie.
Oh, all right.
So Kane Hodder was originally in talks to play Jason again. He's probably the most famous of the Jasons, and he played Jason in parts 7, 8, 9, and 10. He said that he was in talks on it the whole time. Once they figured out who the director was going to be, he stopped hearing from anybody, and he kind of knew then that he wasn't going to get it. He kind of still holds a grudge over this, and I know that he does not get along with Ken Kersinger because of it.
Oh man.
But I mean, honestly, if you're making a Freddy versus Jason movie, why do you not pick Kane Hodder to play Jason?
The
He's like
only
he's like the quintessential Jason
the only
going
reason I
against.
could think of is money, but or
Yeah,
somebody owed somebody a favor.
I don't know if maybe they just wanted a bigger person to play Jason because I think Kane Hodder's 6'2", and I'm not sure how tall Robert Englund is. Maybe
Mm,
they wanted someone who would tower over Robert
fair.
Englund a little bit
Yeah,
more.
fair point.
Um, so New Line Cinema first attempted to make this film several times in the late 80s. When they tried to team up with Paramount Pictures, but there was never an agreement made. And then, if you remember in Jason Goes to Hell, at the end, Freddy's hand comes up and pulls Jason's mask down in the ground and laughs.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, so it took another, 10 years, I think, for this movie to come out. So it was in creation for a long time. And that was even when New Line got the rights to Friday the 13th.
Mm.
So Freddy's boiler room in the movie was actually not a set that was built. It was actually an old boiler room that was redressed by the crew.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I got is this movie cost $30 million and it made 116 in the box office. So
So
yeah,
six.
pretty
That's
good.
better. Rock.
And then grades. IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, what are they?
IMDb, I think I may have seen, was it 6.2?
No, it is not a 6.2. It is a 5.7.
Okay. Maybe I didn't see it. Rotten Tomato critic 65%. No.
41.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually after I said that, I knew it was too high. Audience 60.
It is a 50, which is kind of
Okay.
surprising.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, you know what? How about you go first?
Okay. Um, I think the first time I watched this, I thought it was amazing, but I mean, it was also the first movie of both of the series that I saw in theater. And I was like the right age for it. Like I said, I was probably about 16. Even now, like I still enjoy watching it. It's got some parts that kind of make me groan, and it's really more of a Nightmare on Elm Street movie than it is a Friday the 13th movie. Like it doesn't have that Friday the 13th feel at all to it.
Well, actually, it's very interesting that you say that, not to interrupt, but that the dream that they made for Jason at the beginning was so Friday the 13th. And then that's it.
Yeah, pretty
Like they're
much.
like, okay, we're gonna introduce Jason, we're gonna make it feel like Friday the 13th, and then we're not gonna come back to this at all.
Yeah, and I guess it's really a New Line was the house that Freddy built. That's what they always say. If it wasn't for Nightmare on Elm Street, New Line Cinemas probably wouldn't have lasted.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they're going to have a lot of bias towards Freddy anyway, and they know how to make Freddy movies. Where if you look at their record with Friday the 13th movies, they have Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X.
To the
Probably
best.
the two worst in the whole series.
Yeah.
Um, well, I thought this was handled pretty well and it's enjoyable. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I can't remember what I graded this the last time we watched it,
Okay.
but
Hmm.
going back on it this time, like I still enjoyed it, but there was some things that just kind of like made me groan. And I admit that, some of the acting really isn't the best.
Rock. So I do not know what I rated it last time. I am rating this maybe slightly different this time because I'm rating it in mind with the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Mm-hmm.
So do want to keep that in mind. Definitely an entertainment movie. I thoroughly enjoyed the little bit of Friday the 13th that was in this movie. I mean, Jason, yes, but just kind of like the little bit of feel that they put in there. Um, because I can safely say at this point, I don't think I'm gonna spoil anything for later. Like, I'm more of a Halloween Friday 13th fan than I am of this series. Like, don't get me wrong, Nightmare on Elm Street, the original movie, is fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
but all the crazy different directions they go in this entire series is kind of like thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
So for this one, because I feel like because they introduced Jason, they kind of hone things in more where it's just like, okay, we can't get too crazy with Freddy because we're already outside the box so much by including Jason. So they kind of restrain themselves a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think was kind of a good thing so they wouldn't get carried away. I definitely plenty of things to nitpick. Kind of cheesy, um, kind of scripted uh progression where it's just like, oh, suddenly we conveniently know. Like I had one thing down in my notes where it's just like, oh, how convenient that the druggie pothead finds all the sleeping pills that you're looking for before everybody else does.
Yeah.
And he wasn't actively looking for it. Like everybody else was actively looking for it, but he was just smoking pot. And then he's like, oh, hey, they're in this room right next to me. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wound up giving it a 3 out of 5. So it definitely out of a lot of the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I would watch this one before other ones. But I was good with giving it a 3 out of 5.
Okay, yeah, I'd say that's fair. And it's funny, as a kid growing up, I always liked the Freddy movies more than the Jason ones, but now I'm definitely more of a Friday the 13th fan than I am a Nightmare on Elm Street fan.
Hmm.
And I mentioned this, I believe when we did the Friday the 13th movies, that the series are it's kind of funny how different they all are, like the main three, where like Halloween from 1978 is the best movie out of all of them, hands down.
Yeah.
And then it's got like a gradual nosedive with, some of them like it's like highest, I guess, highest highs, lowest lows. And Friday 13th is kind of like steady all the way through,
Mm-hmm.
where, some of them not as good as others, but like as a whole, they're all pretty decent. And I feel like A Nightmare on Elm Street tried to like do the most imaginative stuff they could and take it in like different directions. And maybe it wasn't handled the best.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where I feel like the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie is probably the second best movie out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny how they all stack up together. But yeah, I would say that I'm more of a fan of Friday the 13th than I am of this now.
Do you want to know what our ratings were last time?
Yeah.
I found that real quick. You gave it a 3 out of 5.
Mm.
I gave it a 2 out of 5.
Oh, so we both went up a little bit.
Yeah. But
That's kind of funny.
again,
But I guess if we're looking at it through the scope of Nightmare on Elm Street, then it is a better Nightmare on Elm Street movie than it is a Friday the 13th movie.
yes, I was just going to say that in context, I think that totally makes sense. You went up a half a point, I went up a full point. So,
Or rock.
all right.
So we've pretty much done everything we can with A Nightmare on Elm Street. So guess what? They had to remake it,
Yay.
which is another one in the series that I saw in theater. And
Yay.
that experience wasn't as good as this one. And believe me, I
Aw.
have lots to say about that movie. So come back next time. We'll be talking about that.
It'll be a good time.
If you guys have been enjoying this, go back and listen to all the Friday the 13th ones we covered, all the Halloween. We've done a fair amount of horror movies on the show. So go back and check those out. Please like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on social media. We're on all platforms. And yeah, prepare yourself for A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. But until then, as always, be kind and rewind.